I, 30F, have a 14-year-old daughter Leah. Married my husband Mark, 46M, 6 years ago. He has 2 children from a previous marriage, Koi, 16M, and Coral, 14F. Me and Mark have the kids full-time, but his kids live with their mom for a few weeks during the summer. They moved into my lake house, which has 5 bedrooms. 2 of the bedrooms upstairs have bathrooms. My daughter had one of those rooms. But as the girls began high school, Coral began complaining about not having a bathroom and said it's unfair. Mark and Koi told her to stop complaining. Leah said it was fine and asked us if she could turn the basement into her room. I didn't like that idea, but she begged. So I agreed. Turns out my daughter wanted a room makeover, so this worked out. We give the kids allowance and allowed them to get a work permit. Koi worked at an arcade and told the girls he could get them jobs. Coral refused to work, but Leah agreed. After 5 months of saving her allowance, she able to buy everything she needed to decorate. Coral never bothered to go down there because she believed it was full of spiders, but Koi was down there every day helping her. After a week she completely transformed the basement. She invited everyone down, and it was stunning. I didn't even know that computer towers could be clear. She looked so proud. Coral then screamed that it wasn't fair and that she wanted the basement now. Everyone began yelling at her, but she began crying, and before we know it she ran over to the computer and threw the tower on the ground. The glass shattered and one of the monitors fell to the floor, also breaking. My daughter cried. I explained to Mark that Coral has to pay for this. He said her emotions are just high and that we'll get situated when everything calms down. I ran to Coral and yelled, saying that she's on punishment. Mark didn't agree, but I didn't care. Coral was unnecessarily crying and ran to her mother's car. Koi was trying to help my daughter, and Mark tried to hand her $300, but Koi explained that Coral caused about $1,000 worth of damages. He said luckily the expensive pieces in the case were saved, but the case itself was about $450 and the monitor was $200. Mark explained that he doesn't have that kind of money. So I said she can't come back until my daughter's stuff is repaired, with a sincere apology. Koi agreed and Mark was upset, saying he couldn't do that to his daughter. I told him to leave if that's the case. Mark left for a few hours and handed my daughter a check for $1,000. I explained that Coral can't come back if there is no punishment. My husband's ex-wife is saying that I'm banning her from our home because she didn't deserve that bigger space and that we were treating Coral unfairly. But I said she did, that there was nothing unfair about the situation. The ex just hung up. Now my husband's ex-in-laws are bombarding him with phone calls saying he's a horrible dad. His sister even said he's being a bad parent, and they're best friends, so it's really getting to him. This happened last night and he hasn't gotten up yet. Should I apologize? Comment 1. NTA. Coral sounds like a spoiled brat, and Mark needs to realize that at 14 she should have a better handle on her emotions than throwing a tantrum because someone else has something nice that she wants. She absolutely should apologize for behaving like a toddler, and Mark needs to stop coddling his kid. At least the older brother seems to have a clue. Let him stew in his feelings, maybe he'll get some insight into why his dismissive parenting isn't doing anyone any favors. Comment 2. NTA, it's your house and you have a right/responsibility to make sure your daughter and her belongings are safe in your home. Since Mark doesn't want to address his daughter's issues, the simple solution is for Mark to get an apartment and live there with Coral during his custody time until Coral has apologized and is safe to have in your home again. Comment 3. You have a husband problem. Your stepdaughter has a father problem. I don't think you can say she can't come back until she pays your daughter back, but your husband paying your daughter solves nothing. She needs therapy, needs to get a job and pay back her father, needs to sincerely apologize to your daughter, and needs strict boundaries. I don't think her father will do any of that. Good luck. NTA. My brother got married on Jamaica 6 years ago. It cost me $2,300 to go for the week plus a week off work, unpaid. Not really a huge deal. I love my brother and I wanted to be there for him. I had a great time and actually met the woman I'm currently dating there at the resort. So it's been 6 years and my sister-in-law is pregnant. It is a huge surprise because they were planning on waiting a while yet. Now they are planning another wedding. I asked him why and he said he wanted to renew their vows before the baby came. I said that was cool but that I would not be attending. I'm busy with work and my own life. He said he really wanted me there. I said no. He said it was important to him I be there. I said that I had already attended his wedding once and that was plenty. If he wanted me to go to his second wedding he would have to pay me for my time and for my trip home. I live and work in the Bay Area and our family is from Raleigh. He finally admitted that the first wedding was a sham. They basically got us all out there for a party. I told him to get ducked. My mom called me to tell me I was being a J not coming to the wedding. I said I would go if my brother covered my expenses. She said I was being ridiculous. I said he was being a narcissist if he thought 2 weddings were needed. She would not relent. She started bugging me and calling me out in our family Facebook group. I told her and my brother to leave me out of their goofy-ass wedding plans. Everyone started dogpiling me about not being there for him. I reminded them that I was his best man at the first wedding. Nope, not good enough. I had to be there for this because family. I'm the only one who would have to take a flight for the wedding. I told everyone to leave me alone and actually muted the group to avoid any further discussion. They started calling me. I finally just started telling everyone that I wasn't going to go unless they paid not just for this wedding, but my time at the previous one. That just pissed people off. So I told the truth. I said that the first wedding wasn't real. And that my brother was not really married. And that he was probably only getting married because our family trust excludes kids born out of wedlock. It's not a lot of money but it covers a full 4-year degree or provides a grant to start a business. We cannot live off the money forever or anything. So this started a huge fight since a bunch of people had been upset about a destination wedding the first time and lots could not afford to go. They felt excluded and made fun of. And now the people who did go are pissed they blew money on a party. And don't get me started on the gifts. So this has obviously caused a lot of stress for them. He called to yell at me for outing him. I said he was a dumb ass for not just going to a justice of the peace quietly. He said his wife is hormonal and wants a real wedding. I don't think I need to go see a second wedding. Comment 1. NTA. His wife had a real wedding even if it was a sham. She had the dress, the guests, the vows. Just because there wasn't a license doesn't mean it wasn't a wedding. She doesn't get to have another one just because they didn't do it right the first time. I mean, truly, she can have as many as she wants, but she doesn't get to expect the same thought and guests and attitude. You don't need to go. Comment 2. NTA. They had a wedding. Bizarrely, it was a sham. Why? But they had all the trappings of a wedding. You and everyone else fulfilled your role as guests. What your bro should do is head down to City Hall and have a civil ceremony to make it legal. He shouldn't have even told anyone about the first one being a sham. Ignore your family. Comment 3. NTA. Dude had a fake expensive destination wedding, and now expects you to take more unpaid time off and pay for a plane ticket for the real wedding? Absolutely not. He and his partner can go down to the courthouse. Your family is being ridiculous expecting you to take another flight for a second wedding. ETA, he brought it on himself trying to use the rest of the family to bully you into going to the wedding. Why won't you do this for your brother? Well, he told me the first one was a fake. I rent out my house through a service that includes insurance when it is in use. The insurance does not cover when I lend my house out to friends and family since they are not paying. I have regular homeowners insurance for that. My brother was using my house with his family just after New Year's. It's a slow time and I wasn't going to lose out on much income. My nephew stayed up late one night and didn't go out for breakfast with his family. So he decided to make himself some food. He started a kitchen fire. And he freaked out and called 911 instead of using the fire extinguisher in the kitchen. He is 14, so I can't blame him too much. The smoke damage will cost about $8,700 to fix. I told my brother he could take his time paying me back. He said he wasn't going to pay for an innocent mistake. I needed the house in order, so I just fixed everything. I didn't go through insurance since I do not want my rates going up. I was obviously upset, so I posted about the fire and how pissed I was at my brother. Pretty much all my friends and family took the side of the innocent angel. They said it was unfair for me to expect that much money from him, when he could have rented a hotel for 1/4 the price. So I agreed. I said that from now on my house was off limits unless they rented it out or I was there and they came as my guests. Since I only use the house with my family, that means they can rent it all or use the only empty bedroom. It has a twin bed and a crib. Now the howling started that I'm being unfair to them for something that wasn't their fault. I offered to take up a collection from them to cover the repairs or the increased insurance premiums, and most of them shut up. I directed them all to my brother. He got quite angry at me for blaming him for the situation. I said I wasn't about to send a mob after my nephew. I bought the house after I got a settlement from a worksite accident. I used the income to supplement the difference in what I used to earn at my old job and what I do now. So I guess my question is, am I the a-hole for telling everyone who has a problem with me charging rent or stuffing a family into a room meant for 2 small children to talk to my brother about it? Comment 1. NTA. Your brother deserves to be the one dealing with the flack. If I were him, I would have at least offered to pay the increased insurance premiums. Or that amount monthly until the repairs were paid off if you didn't go through insurance. He is the one who wrecked it for everyone. And anyone who took his side I would not trust in my house. Comment 2. NTA. This is a perfect example of no good deed goes unpunished. Your brother absolutely is responsible for paying for the repairs. It's no different than if you went over to his house and caused damage. So now if they're not willing to take responsibility for it, they can pay to stay with you or in a hotel that includes the insurance. Comment 3. NTA. If the kid can't be blamed for starting a fire, then the dad has to be blamed for leaving the kid unsupervised, because obviously he isn't ready to handle emergencies. The family is angry that their free ride is over. Tell them that you can't afford the risk involved in giving away rental time for free.
Okay, so background: I 40M am married to a 38F. We met in high school. Wife's parents are terrible. Completely abused her until she moved out at 18. My wife has always tried to be a good mother and break the abusive cycle. We both have good jobs, they want for nothing, we tried not to spoil. They have chores, know their manners, are good kids in school. So my daughter came home one day and asked us to go visit her grandparents' house. We said, yeah, because we thought she meant my parents. But no, she meant my wife's. My wife immediately said no. Then I backed her and said they will have no part in their lives. She said I was overreacting and that she deserves to meet all her grandparents. And we were being selfish. My wife was diagnosed with PTSD and still sees a therapist, due to all the bullshit that she went through. It really annoyed me and I sent her to her room. I talked to my wife and said that I should tell her what happened. So she understands why we are saying no. That her parents aren't good people. My wife was reluctant but agreed as long as she didn't have to be there, so she wasn't triggered. I went to my daughter's room the next day and I talked to her. I said, look, I understand you are upset, but we are not saying no just to say no. There is a lot you do not understand, but I'm going to explain it, so that maybe you understand more. Your mom's parents were abusive, she was humiliated daily, screamed and terrorized since she was 6 years old. Every moment and holiday was ruined by fear, and she almost died on Thanksgiving Day due to her stepfather. That your mom and her sister still suffer from the trauma and that we will never have a relationship with them. And I hope that she understands now, something along the lines of that. I told her and thought she understood. Anyway, it was my wife's birthday a week ago, and she doesn't like celebrating honestly but does it for us. It was actually a really great day. My wife's sister and our 2 other children and my whole family were there celebrating at our house. Until around 7 at night a knock at my door and my daughter went to answer the door. We figured it was a friend of hers. But when she came right back in the living room it was my mother-in-law and father-in-law. My wife and her sister both frozen, and they came in like they ducking owned the place. Trying to be buddy. My wife asked them in a timid voice and said, "What are you doing here?" They said, "Our granddaughter invited us." She then tried to speak up more and tell them they needed to go. But they wouldn't. I got up and went between my wife and them and said to leave, they are unwanted here. My daughter really stood up for them and said that she talked to them. And that mom just exaggerated what happened. And that they were good parents. That's when my father-in-law said, "That's right, whatever we did to you ungrateful kids you deserved that." Fist my wife off and she shouted to leave. I went up with my dad and we were going to push him out. But he's 64, 250 pounds at least got us off him and he pushed my wife into the wall. Her head hit straight back at the wall. She had to get stitches. As soon as that happened me and my dad and brother forced him outside. And said they needed to leave or we would press charges. Her mom kept saying that she was a good mom and my wife was dramatic, and she just had bad children. Anyway, my mother took my wife to the hospital because we were still trying to get them to leave the driveway and my mother brought her there and back once they left completely. My wife didn't say anything the rest of the night, besides thanking my mother for the ride then going to our room. Her sister was really freaked out too and left, right after hugging my wife. My children were in the living room and I told my son and my younger daughter to go into their rooms. I needed to speak to their sister. I admit I lost it. I ducking screamed. Said she was so selfish and I couldn't believe she did that. That she still got into contact after I explained what they did to her mom when she was younger. How I was honestly disgusted with her. She started to cry and say she genuinely thought I was exaggerating. And it would be good for them to get together. She said she got in touch with them on social media. And they seemed great. How they made everything seem not as bad, and she said she didn't think they could be that evil and be related to us. I told her there are evil people everywhere, we have just tried to shield her away. Because parents are supposed to protect their kids. I was so upset, I genuinely wanted to call her an idiot but I didn't. But every move my wife did to move past her trauma was demolished by this idiotic decision. My daughter apologized and I said sorry doesn't cut it. Her actions risked her mother's health and everyone's safety. My wife talked to her and said that she no longer trusts her, and how these are the consequences of her actions. For meddling in something that was not her business to meddle with. She has no more phone and no more visiting friends until she earns that trust again. And we can add a punishment we see fit. I've comforted my wife as much as I can but she's not great. While I think honestly I went too easy on my daughter, I figured I should have other opinions. Edit my daughter is 16. Comment 1. I don't see how people think he's the asshole. 16 is old enough to understand actions have consequences. She was explained exactly what happened. To her mom she sought them out anyway. Comment 2 10TA. Yes, your daughter probably was manipulated by your in-laws, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't a violation of your trust and immensely triggering to your wife, even without the physical injury. At the very least, no devices and no social media are a fitting punishment. Do press charges though, you might be able to get a no-contact court order.